Welcome to the Love You Mom Podcast, the place where we're going to celebrate the beautiful, sometimes messy, always meaningful bond between mothers and their daughters. I'm Candace Newton Chaput, and I'm so excited to bring you real conversations, tough conversations, heartwarming stories, and empowering insights to strengthen your connection between mom and daughter. Whether you're the mother to an 8-year-old girl, a teen, or an adult daughter, or a mom, a grandma, an auntie, a niece, a cousin, or a daughter yourself, and you're looking to create lasting memories, well, this space is for you. Real, honest, raw stories. Kind, but transparent, using experts and everyday ordinary people just like me, sharing how I learned to manage my relationships and what I needed. And so I'm so excited for you to join me. Every week, we're going to have a variety of different speakers. Hopefully, my daughters will have the courage to join in. My daughter-in-laws, I'm so blessed to have two beautiful daughter-in-laws in my life. And I'm really excited for you to join me. So this space is for you. So let's laugh and learn and love together. Welcome to the Love You Mom podcast. Let's get started. So good morning, Kathy from Florida. Well, it's good afternoon for you. Good morning still for me. I'm on the west coast of Canada. You're on the east coast of the United States in Florida. Welcome to the Love You Mom podcast.
Thank you, Candace. It's just an honor to be here. I'm looking forward to this.
Oh, I'm so excited. So I've been watching you on Instagram and social media and really love what it is that you're sharing authentically from your heart. And so I just want to say right now that this is a conversation that does involve people that have a Christian faith or are interested in a Christian faith. However, whether you believe or don't believe, or whether you're open or are curious, the sun does shine on everybody. The rain falls on everyone. We all need wisdom. We all need love. We all love our children. So I'm just going to just give you a moment to share about what you're offering, and then we'll remind people again at the end so that they know what you have to offer. But our conversation and the principles of love and compassion belong to anyone. So do you want to just,
Absolutely.
yeah, share a little bit, Kathy?
Yes, I completely agree with all that. And I am, though, obviously a person of a Christian faith. And my materials and what I'm going to be talking about, a membership that I have, is pretty much surrounded by that. So I just like people to be aware of that so they understand what they're getting into if it's something they're interested in. But I'm on Instagram mainly, and it's at Kathy Cunningham 717 if you're interested. And my focus right now, what I would call my calling, is to parents of adult children. And that's whether they're just launching at 18 to 22, which is just that new, what do I do now? They're turning into adults. Where should I be with this? Plus the loss of, feeling that empty nest sometimes, but then all the way through to, people have adult children in their 40s and 50s, right? And whether that is a good relationship or it's a difficult one. And of course, I have a lot of people on my page that are struggling with estrangement and not even having relationships with their adult children, sometimes not even understanding why. And so, what I've developed is a membership site. And in that membership, it's basically we do live teachings, we have a support group in there once a month. And every month you get a free course, not a free course because you're paying for it, but a course that's part of your membership. The last one we did was on boundaries, and respecting theirs, holding yours, and every month you get that. But I think the most powerful part of it is the support group. We do a live support group together, and then I have a community page where it's kind of like a closed Facebook where there's a lot of comments, sharing with each other, getting feedback from others, and just because I feel that we can feel very alone in this season, and we're not alone. There's so many going through it, but we just don't know that. And then when we start to connect, we realize this is not an isolated situation. Many people are going through this.
That's it is so true. It's part of life. It's part of the cycle of life, and navigating it, especially in today's world, is a little bit challenging because
Mhm.
there are so many other factors that when maybe you and I might have been growing up. The world has changed so dramatically, and with the influence of social media and people thinking differently, it can be very challenging. So, thank you for, first of all, for creating that course. I love people to get to know you a little bit. So, can you tell me about your story and then, sort of your pieces around your relationship with your kids that may have motivated this converse or this sort of movement, and then how you ended up on Instagram?
Okay, sure. I'll give you the whole big picture.
Yeah.
So, I'm probably like most parents, most moms, doing the best I can, as I'm walking through life and the different seasons and they're younger. And, I have two children that adult children, one's a daughter, one's a son. And they kind of are, as probably many people can relate, like complete opposites. I mean, total opposite ends of the world in personality and the way they view things. And my daughter and I are very different in personality. My son and I are very similar. So, with my daughter, I think that was really a lot of the issues that we struggled with is very opposite personalities. I was trying to make her to be like me, and she couldn't be, that what, and so the needs that I thought I was fulfilling, it was not fulfilling for her because she did not have the same needs that I had. And most teenage mom daughter relationships, we in the teenage years had a lot of tension, a lot of arguments. I think I saw that all as just being very normal, but later it came out that it was very, very hurtful to her, and there was a lot of pain involved in her. So that's the one side of the story, and I'll go into that a little bit more as we go along. And then my son, who's very much like me, and really I didn't have a lot of tension with him. My husband did. He early on started experimenting, with pot and the things that kids do, and yes, we disciplined him, and we would tell him, don't go down that road. We have a lot of addiction in our family, but I wasn't terribly worried because I know that kids that age in their teens, they experiment, right? Well, for him, he had, I believe there is an addictive genetic tendency, and he had that genetic gene that led him into addiction. And so that began, we became aware how bad it was, his first arrest when he was 19. And it was actually at my granddaughter's first birthday party, I got the call that he would not be coming to the party because he was in jail. And that
Wow.
started
Wow.
a 15-year journey of addiction.
Wow. I
Yeah,
can't even imagine getting that call, emotionally speaking,
yeah,
shock and overwhelm, and then you're trying to be happy for the party that's going on, but
yes,
trying to how did
yes.
how did that impact you? Like, what were those experiences and feelings in that moment? Because people are listening and they need to know that what they're experiencing is real.
Yes, absolutely. I think you're just you're numb, you're in shock, it's like a loss that just happened. And I'm trying to navigate not taking away from, my first grandbaby's party. I'm also, as many of us can relate, I didn't want anyone to know how embarrassing. There was shame, so I'm trying to keep it secret from even my extended family. And then we're trying to navigate how do we take care of what he's going through, getting a lawyer, this is like never had happened before. I was blindsided. This was not part of our life and trying to figure that out. So it was a lot at one time. Yeah.
Wow, for sure. So then moving from there, then
Yeah.
moving into the rest of your story. I love hearing people's stories.
Okay. Yeah. So, this all took me on a long journey. And I would say probably my son's addiction was the most impactful of how it affected me, and my husband also. At first, I just tried to control everything. I tried to fix it. I kept trying to change him. In the meantime, my daughter and I had a lot of tension going on. There was times, and I know other moms can relate, that I felt like I'm just the worst. I'm a failure. I'm like
Mm.
the worst mom. I don't have I have a son that has an addiction, and my daughter can't get along with me. Obviously there's something wrong with me. But what it did do there, I got to a point. One thing I did have a solid foundation for me was a solid foundation of faith, and I had a good support system. And I think we all, even in the 12 steps, my son is a big advocate of the 12 steps. And, we all have to have something bigger than us, whatever that is for us. And, many people call that their higher power. For me, that is the God of the Bible. But that is where I began to draw my strength. But I felt God telling me, you need to quit asking why, which is what I was doing. Why me? Why are all my friends' kids getting married, having kids, and my son's going through one rehab after another and ending up in jail about every, 6 months? Why is this my life? And he turned it around and said, start asking what? What do I need to learn? How do I need to grow through this season? How do I need to allow this to change me into someone better through a difficult experience? And when I grasped that, and I did, I mean, it wasn't right away, I wrestled with this whole thing as we do. I finally surrendered and said, okay, what do I need to do? And in the meantime, I'm still struggling with my daughter, but it kind of converted into the same question with me. Instead of keeping looking at, like, why is she doing this? Why can't we get along? It became, what do I need to do? And that became part of my healing journey. I had to go back and realize I had old past wounds from childhood. I had things, beliefs that I had based on experience that I had to work on. I had to forgive some people. I went through a solid journey of freedom and wholeness. And really, what that brought me to is a place of emotional maturity. I had healing and then emotional maturity. And then I was able to handle these situations in a whole different way.
I love that. I can so relate. I can think of 1,000 things come through my mind. What I'm a little curious about is what was the catalytic event, or was there one, something that made you have to look inside? Because, I know you know this, we all know this. We grow up
Mhm.
physically with our childhood thought processes, and we
Yes.
don't even realize we have them.
Yeah.
And so our perspectives are a little skewed. And of
Mhm.
course, with our kids who are, and I have four that are all unique, and
Yeah.
and they all have a different way of expressing themselves. And so how did you come to that place? Because it's really hard if another woman who's maybe a little bit more emotionally evolved, maybe she's had something that's made her do her work, how could she have said to Kathy or Candace, what was it to say, you know what? This really isn't about them.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is this is about you. Well, it's not about me. There's nothing wrong with the way I think. I'm fine. It's
Mhm.
just them. How did you come to that place? Because it is not an easy place to get to. Yeah.
No, it's not. And on my posts on Instagram, I see that question a lot. What about them? And I totally get it. I never judge that because I was there for a while. And
Yeah.
that was my question for a while. But I think the intensity of having a son with an addiction, and then around, I think it was probably about 12 years ago. So this isn't that long ago. I always tell people it's never too late to get these things taken care of. My daughter had approached me about some childhood things and wanted to talk about some hurts, and I did not respond well. I was
I
defensive.
understand. Like,
I
what do you
was like,
mean? I did my best. Are you kidding me? Do you
"You did all
understand the
the best."
sacrifices I made? I went through labor without anesthetic. How can you criticize me?
Oh yeah, that was me,
Me
defensive,
too.
withdrawal, feeling sorry for myself.
Yeah.
But as I went through those moments, that's when I began to say, you know what, I believe there's something I need to do here. And I came to the conclusion that whether it changed anything or not, I needed to do this for me, not for them. Because I was not happy.
I
I
was going to
was
say you were
so
probably
sad.
miserable
I was
inside.
miserable. I was miserable inside. I was stressed. I was anxious. My whole life just felt very, overwhelming. And so I think that's sometimes the point we have to get to when we say, okay, enough. What do I got to do here?
It's true because we don't want to let go of what we hold on to as a belief because it's a certainty and a security that's helped
Yeah.
us,
Yes.
but it's not serving us anymore. It might have helped us
Right.
when we were a child to understand what was
Yes.
going on and the stories we told ourselves. It's interesting. I just want to add a little thought. So, when you were talking about feeling like a failure as a parent, and for any persons listening to this, whether you're sort of faith based or not, I have shared this. One day I was doing what you were doing, like, God, and my kids are great. My
Yeah.
kids
Right. They've had their bumps. I've had my bumps. I was a street kid, so I got a lot more than they ever did. And it was me. It was me not relating to them. They had their own journey. But I remember just calling out to God and complaining, like, I'm the worst parent in the world. And how did this happen? And I just was going through this whole bad feeling about myself. And very gently, that gentle whisper in my heart, it wasn't an audible voice for those who are listening. I don't need to be locked up anywhere. But it was that still small, quiet
Yeah.
voice and said, am I the perfect father? And I said, yes. And then he very quietly said, have you seen my children?
Mm, yes.
And I instantly realized, like, God, for us, and even as parents, it split that capacity to understand they have free will.
Hmm.
And my faith or my belief isn't transferable to them.
Yeah.
I had my experiences that led me to where I was. What conclusion did you sort of come to in that perspective? Or did you have some of that defining moment that gave you that understanding? Because you really did say, I'm miserable.
Yeah. Hmm.
Obviously, you can't control what's out here. The only person we can control is here. Um, yeah. So, was there a particular moment when that shifted for you, like a time period where it was just a really a aha moment?
Yeah, and I think it was in the midst of that. There's other things going on too. My mom and my dad were ailing, so my mom had Alzheimer's, my dad was battling cancer. There was just like everything that could be going on was going on at the same time. So I think it was just this place of saying, number one, I gotta let go of the pride because much of it was pride. I can't speak for anyone else, but I know for me, it was pride, and I had to just be humble. I had to say, you know what? Yes, I've made some mistakes. I'm going to make amends for those. I need to change. I need to work on me and stop worrying about what everybody else was doing. So I think it was that pivotal moment of just everything in life was kind of falling apart. And that was where God led me, where I felt, I needed to go. And I started through some different healing processes for myself, which eventually I did create a 6-week course around being a Christian counselor. I am a coach, and I did that individually with people. I've had a private practice for like 20 years, and
Mm,
now I've turned it into a course and the membership. And that's really kind of, I think, how all this whole thing has evolved, because I've been working with people for years. But the beginning of this year, in the last, I would say the last 2 or 3 years, I've noticed a trend, a shift in our society with parents and adult children. And I was having more and more, I see both. I see probably more of the adult children, but I'm seeing more and more like disconnect and tension. I had some clients that were estranged from their parents, but they're great people. And it was like they kept missing each other. They like the parents, and I believe they were in the place of me, like, why are you saying this? The pride kicks in, the shame kicks in, and then you put the walls up, and then the kids are over here. I'm just trying to tell you how I feel, and you're not listening, and eventually it's just going to come apart. And then we have voices now. We have a lot of stuff on social media that's pushing these adult children in the direction of, if somebody yelled at you when you were younger, you need to cut them out. And I want to make sure I say this very clearly. There are cases when that is necessary to remove yourself from someone, addiction, abuse, certain personality disorders, but I do not believe it's as much as it's being, is happening in our society today. I think there's just a lot of influences out there that are twisting things in a way that's creating a lot of division in the family. And so I really began to feel I was being more and more called into this space of speaking to parents. I'm not speaking to adult children. I'm speaking to the parents because I believe, like in my case, all we can do is work on us. Number one, we don't have any control over them, especially the more they get into adulthood. But I have found in my own experience that when I began to change and I began to work on me, we began to work through these things. It had to start with me in my case. And I think that's the case in most places. Because as parents, we are leaders. We are the leader, And so we have to lead by example. And I know that's hard sometimes because we feel like, why am I always the one that has to do it? Why am I always the one that has to step up? And that's just the way it is. We can hate something all day long, but if we want to have connection and relationship, sometimes we have to lay that pride down and say, I'm going to do what it takes here. Now, we also have to have boundaries in place in some situations. So, but that's how this all came about. Is I began to feel in my own experience, and then looking at my clients, looking at the world that we live in, and saying, parents need help. They need help navigating this landscape that is different, like you said, than anything any of us ever experienced. And that's where this was all born out of.
And so many people can relate. And I think your timing is really essential and important and imperative. When you think about adult children, if they were coming to you outside of serious abuse and
Yeah.
understanding that, and I sort of look at it this way, I came from an abusive background, but and this is, I'm not telling everybody that they should do this, but I learned to love my father in that sense of honoring my feelings as a daughter, that I had
Mhm.
that love for my dad. I couldn't deny that I had that love for my dad, but I also understood that my dad had issues that were compassionately, as a World War II veteran and
Mm.
PTSD and undiagnosed and all those pieces. As I stepped back away from making the situation so personal. And really, one of the cards that I wrote in the Love You Mom series is finally learning to love you as the person that you are rather
Mm.
than the person I needed you to be. And
Yeah.
but in saying all that, I'm super curious, like when you do have children, adult children, or did, and was speaking to them, um, because I get a lot of them across my pathway too.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, I'm not a counselor, but I'm an experienced person. So I share that experience. But when you do have an adult child, it's like, oh, I hate my parents, or I don't want to talk to them, or they don't understand me, and they're not listening. Because there could be some listening right now, and their parents seem to be closed off.
Mhm.
But they are feeling like I want to talk to them, but I've tried everything I know, and I don't know what else to do. What would you say would be a first step? And is the principle that you're saying of working on ourselves applied to that young adult person as well?
I think that's all, it applies for everybody in the world. We only have control over ourselves. We can't change other people, and we can only change ourselves. And most of the time, of course, there's always exceptions. When we change and we work on the areas that we need some strength in, that might be our weaknesses, it affects everybody around us in a positive way. So, are there guarantees? Is it going to happen? No, I can't guarantee anything. But the reality is, statistically shows when we work on ourselves, it creates an environment that others are drawn to that, and there's a higher probability of repair. And that goes either way. I always say the healthiest person in the room is probably going to be the one that's going to have to start the reconciliation
Mhm.
process, and sometimes that's not the parent. And the only hope I would have for those parents, because again, that they would see that and begin to evaluate themselves and say, how can I come across with a little bit more grace and gentleness, and listening and hearing what these adult children are saying. I think that's the thing that's so hard for us. I did it. The first time my daughter came to me with some things that, they bring things to us that are real for them, but they're not always the way we remember it. And that's what's so hard, because it's like, wait a minute, I don't remember it being that bad.
Yeah.
In your head, you say that. You don't say that out loud.
Yeah. Oh, I've said it out loud, and then I paid for it.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
that is reality. That's what they experienced, and that's why we have to sit, we have to listen. And it's very hard, and it's very hard if we haven't dealt with our wounds, because all those old childhood wounds come to the surface, and we begin to react out of those. But when we're healthy emotionally, we can handle that. We can listen, we can hear. We don't have to explain ourselves. We don't have to defend ourselves. And that's going to bring that repair that we're looking for.
And do you believe that, well, I'm sure you probably do, but that the stronger our sense of self-worth, true self-worth, not
Mhm.
ego, not
Yeah.
pride, but real self-worth, understanding that whether you're a faith-based person or not, everyone agrees that
Mhm.
we are intrinsically valuable. And I
Yeah.
said this on a podcast a week ago. If you don't think you have intrinsic self-worth, imagine someone trying to put their hands around your throat. You're going to fight back,
Yeah.
because even if you don't feel good about yourself that day, there's something that says, I have value and worth and I need to breathe. I need to
Yeah.
be on this planet. Do you think, because I know for me, it was really looking at, if I'm grounded in my sense of who I am, mistakes, accepting that myself, receiving that unconditional love, that doesn't mean I get away with bad behavior, because if I've got bad behavior, then I'm really having a bad relationship with myself, because why would I treat myself that way? And so learning to care for myself, I think, does remove that personal piece out of the room, because I can remember with my, so out of my 4 kids, I got 2 boys, 2 girls. My oldest daughter is very much like me, but I
Okay.
didn't think she was like me, because
Hmm.
my other daughter is, my youngest daughter, super, super, super sweet, super kind, super loving. That's who I thought she was like me. But,
Hmm.
and she does. She has, but my oldest daughter identified weaknesses in me, but I didn't realize she was doing that. She was
Hmm.
like critical of me in certain areas, didn't like stuff. She would challenge me. And I thought it was because she was just like disrespectful or didn't value. But what she was doing was mirroring back to me the areas in my life that were absolutely untouched, that needed work.
Yeah.
Because I think your greatest critics, now don't everybody start criticizing me, but our greatest critics are pointing out opportunities for growth. Now,
Yeah.
sometimes they can be mean, and we have to know who we are, not to
Mhm.
accept that into our
Yeah.
sense of self. But do you agree that the stronger we know who we are, the
Mhm.
less triggered we are by the outside? Because
Mhm.
if someone tells me, Candace, you've got blue eyes, I'm like, no, they're brown. It's a
Yeah.
fact.
Yeah.
So how do you see where like identity fits self-identity? And can you give me an example of an adult childhood wound that's showing up, an example of something that shows up that's pretty common, that's
Yeah.
actually getting in the way of others that are listening to us right now can identify with?
Well, first of all, yes, the healthier we are in our self-worth, the better we're going to respond, like you said, because there's nothing deep inside that's triggering anymore. The triggers are gone, or if they're not completely gone, we know what they are. We're aware of them. So we're not allowing them to take over our emotions. And I think the most common is rejection. I think that many people, especially maybe of our generation, because our parents did not have things like this. They were just working, doing the best they could. They yelled and, they had hard lives themselves, but out of that sometimes did come a sense of maybe some emotional abandonment, some rejection without ever meaning that to happen. And so if we have kind of a root of rejection in our heart, and our adult child now is saying things about us that is hurtful to us, that little girl from, a long time ago kind of rises up and says, "Oh, here it comes again. I'm being rejected, I'm being hurt, I'm being put down." And it's not so much the adult child that is triggering that, it's that old wound that we've not taken care of, but we think it's that. And so I think that's my best example of that. And with that rejection often comes these thoughts of, I'm not good enough, I'm the problem, there's something wrong with me. And we carry that with us through life, and it gets activated through these situations with our adult children.
That's really good, and it's really identifiable, because as children, we only have, like, I always say it from a height point of view. If I'm only 2 feet high, I have a 2 feet, like, perspective. I can't see bigger than that. So when things are happening around, or my parents, as you identified, they yelled, they did, because it was post-war. And,
Yeah.
there was nothing worse than war. So get over it, right? Like,
Uh-huh.
people are
Yeah.
starving and people were killing each other. And I've been on the fields with guns going off. So, this is nothing. Suck it up. And
Hmm.
and yeah, they had to survive, which was unfortunate. But I think, like, when we're little, and we tell ourselves that story at that time to make sense. Like we look at a parent's face. You know that study where they did years ago where if a baby's looking at mommy and mommy doesn't smile back, the baby goes into distress. Baby's
Yeah.
trying to connect.
Mhm.
So what do little people do? And I'm saying this to all the mamas, all the ladies, faith or non-faith, when you've got feelings inside,
Mhm.
they're your feelings inside. Someone can't put them in there.
Yeah.
Nobody can make you feel a certain way.
Mhm.
And so when you're little, you make up these stories to make sense of what's happening around you.
Yeah.
And because you don't tell anybody, because you don't know to tell anybody, then
Right.
I think they sit there like a minefield, like what you're
Mhm.
saying.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden it shows up. So can you speak a little bit to how we need to like maybe just begin even today paying attention to our inner reactions? Like, should we journal that? Should we, how do we do that in a really beginning place
Yeah.
other than becoming a member of your, in what you're offering, which would be super helpful because you have community. But where would we begin today? Someone's listening and they're like,
Yeah.
oh, I've got all these feelings. I got so many. I feel like I'm having an emotional panic attack.
Yeah.
How do they
Well,
deal with
as
that?
you said, journaling has been proven because we take what's all in our mind and put it somewhere, so we don't have to carry it with us. So that is one way. But I think so much of it really does come back to our thoughts. So I often tell people do a thought audit. And what that means is take a couple days, and when you're feeling a negative emotion, whatever it may be, these thoughts don't pop up until you're in a negative space. So if you're having a great day, you're going to think, oh, I'm good, you know. But if we're not having a great day, or we're just feeling a little down or disturbed or anything, overwhelmed, take a pause and say, what am I thinking? What am I
Mm,
thinking? And dig in, dig in. Don't just say, oh, I'm not sure. I'm just thinking about the weather. No, there's something deeper there. I'm thinking, I feel alone. I'm thinking, I don't belong right now. I'm thinking, they don't want to be around me. And start writing those thoughts down because those thoughts are clues to the hidden wounds that are inside.
mm,
And then you want to begin a process of replacing those thoughts with a positive. In my realm, I would say find some scripture to replace it. But even just having a positive, but not an opposite. It has to be something believable. And that's why we all have to find our place of truth. If I'm
yeah.
saying in my thoughts I'm not good enough, well, we wouldn't say I am good enough. You want to have something I'm working toward. I'm seeing myself moving toward a change and really grasping a better part of myself. So you want it to be believable, but what you have to start doing with that then is you got to start rewiring your brain because your brain's very wired from childhood to go to those automatic thoughts. There's a person called Dr. Amen. I don't know if you've ever
Yeah,
heard
I
him.
know
Yeah.
Dr. Amen.
Okay.
I actually know the publicist that put him on the air.
Okay. Well, he
Yeah.
has a thing called ANTS, automatic negative thoughts. And he talks a lot about rewiring the brain. And what it is, it's figuring out what they are. And then you take that phrase that you've come up with and you start saying that every day. And anytime you see that negative thought come up, you say that positive thought. You say that thing that's going to redirect your brain to a positive direction. And that's what we have to do because that's the way our brains work. So that's one step you can take is really start figuring out what am I thinking and then how do I change those thoughts into a positive place that's real for me, not just a fairy tale, but something I can really hold on to and believe.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And then, of course, is it true? Is this really true? How do I
Yes. Yeah.
know
Yeah.
that my daughter hates me? Like, there's not a child that I know of that really honestly wants to hate their
Yeah.
parents. They're
Hmm.
just so confused. And so we can get these thoughts inside and we're just like, oh, they hate me. And it like that is just not serving yourself. And when you talk about the mind, we're so inundated with computers. We know that we put something in and we get an output.
Yeah.
And our human brains are exactly the same. Whatever we put in
Hmm.
comes
Yeah.
out. And then can you talk about how we should position our feelings, because I always use this analogy. A 14-year-old boy, whoever the 14-year-old boys are, sorry guys, I'm
Mhm.
using you as an example, who's inundated with hormones and goes
Yeah.
on a bus and sees a girl, and all of a sudden he's got all these feelings in his body and he wants to reach out and touch things inappropriately. Like you're
Uh-huh.
like, you know what? You might feel that way and it's a real feeling, but yeah, don't act on it. So
Yeah.
can you
Yeah.
talk about the place where feelings are legit,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
how we manage those feelings in the face of truth and not putting that on someone else?
Yes, yeah. And it's exactly what you said. It's whenever you have a feeling, you want to take a pause and you want to invest and be curious. Why am I having this feeling? So somebody says something to you and suddenly you're feeling anger, you're feeling upset, or you're feeling fear. You pause. Don't say anything. Pause for a moment and saying, why am I feeling like this? Observe yourself and
Mm.
ask yourself, is there somewhere in my background this could be coming from? And most of the time you're going to say, yeah, somebody just kind of was disrespectful to me. And that's how I felt when I was little. So it's really not about them, it's about this. And then, so you're kind of changing your perspective in that moment. And then the last part of that is just practice what works, which is not reacting. But as
Mm.
you've taken that pause, you've calmed your brain down, and now you can have a better response instead of a reaction. So that's usually the best thing we can. The feelings are going to come. We're going to get feelings, but it's what we do with the feelings that count. That's going to be the main thing. Oh, sorry about that.
No, that's okay. It's real life. Um, yeah, this is so good, and I just don't want to give your whole course away.
Yeah.
I
No,
want
you're
people
fine. Yeah.
I want people to be able to really benefit from the community, from the
Mhm.
tools and resources that you've created from your real life experience. They're not just, I don't like, I love, we come from a medicine family, and some of our medicine people in our family have never experienced certain things. And so sometimes
Uh-huh.
it's really hard. We accept the knowledge that they have because they've studied it, but it sure makes a difference when
Yeah.
if the doctor said, oh, I've had my appendix on it ruptured on me, I know what you're feeling.
Yeah.
It's very different in the ability to receive. And
Absolutely.
I see a lot of mostly women, but men too, where their emotional reactions are so big inside themselves. It really is like an emotional panic attack. They are just lost in the panic. And
Hmm.
so you saying take a pause, take a breath, step back, do an action that removes you from that moment,
Yeah.
because it's the amygdala that's firing off. And
Hmm.
this executive brain is lost like a toddler. If
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
toddler is full blown
Yeah.
emotion and has no reasoning ability, and yeah, so I think there's great hope. And I think that's the thing that your membership and the all the materials you're offering is hope. It's like, yeah, these things are tough. There's
Yeah.
lots of influence going on out there, you know, people whispering, people challenging social media thoughts, processes. But the age old truth is the same,
Yes.
in that if we mature
Mhm.
by getting control over ourselves, right? Because a
Yeah.
toddler, we look at a 2-year-old, I call them terrific twos, although a lot of
Yeah.
mamas right now with 2-year-olds don't think it's so terrific. Uh,
Uh-huh.
but because it's hard, right? They're throwing down temper tantrums. So many adults do that. It's like we're still two
Yeah.
emotionally.
Hmm.
And that doesn't feel integrated, and it doesn't feel like we're a fully an adult, right? We're walking around with a big reaction.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So just in wrapping up, as you're sharing about your children, how do your kids feel when you're sharing your story? Because I've got to be really careful with my kids. Out of respect, Mama's been told, Mom,
Yeah.
you're public and my life is not. And so I have to learn that, because I
Yeah.
everybody
Hmm.
wants to do this. So how does your children, your adult children, manage, or have they given you boundaries around those kind of conversations, or what's the yeah, what's the
Yeah,
relationship?
and it's been like I said, it's probably about 12 years ago. My son's 9 years sober. So
Uh,
he's been on his healing journey through AA and the 12 steps. My daughter has been on her healing journey. And so we have gotten to a place where we can pretty much talk about anything. We have monthly dinners together, and nothing off the table. I have a daughter-in-law, son-in-law, grandkids, and we have a really very, very great relationship that we've all worked hard on. And that's why I always tell people, I mean, think about it, at my age, this was 12 years ago. And if 12 years ago you'd asked me if I'd be doing this, I'd say, my life is in chaos. I have the worst relationship with my kids. No. So it just shows you it doesn't matter where you're at. You just start where you are. And it's amazing what can happen as we just keep taking that next right step for ourselves. And so at this point, they actually join me most of the time. In fact, in my membership, they're very excited about the membership. So it's kind of a family thing. So my son just did a live teaching with me, and he
I
shared
saw.
his perspective, and then I did mine. And really, especially with him, there's nothing off the table. I don't think there's probably anything at this point. Now there was, so I want to make sure I caution that this has been a process to get where we are. My daughter's actually going to be joining me for our next live,
Oh, nice.
and we're going to bring it all out. So yeah, they're very invested, and we really are at a point now where there's really, I mean, of course I always use wisdom about anybody I talk about, but there's not too much about our story I can't share because, we've had that talk so many times, and they're part of it now. So we're enjoying this part of where we're at, and I hope that gives people hope, because again, this is not like been this perfect family all these years. 12 years, even probably 10 years ago, it was total chaos, and we have come so far, and I feel that's a pretty short amount of time in the big picture of things, for where we were.
And it's interesting, there is no such thing as a perfect family. There just isn't.
Yeah.
Because whether people are, some people are functioning, but they're functioning under, their own sort of dysfunction. And
Hmm.
because we're human and none of us are perfect, there is no such thing
Right.
as
Right.
the perfect family. So I
Hmm.
think it's whether or not you are whole in yourself as much as possible, and then you can, navigate better, because you don't need your kids to be a certain way then. You can hear them for what they are. I identify with you. My youngest daughter has had some pretty tough conversations with me, and she's a pretty loving, gentle kid, who's had, Mom, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I need to share this. Mom, this is what I experienced. And and it is tough to hear that. And I
Yeah.
also think that um, um, we want to gain what you identified, and I think probably your membership will help all of us lead to, is emotional maturity. And
Yeah.
emotional maturity is that ability to not react when we
Hmm.
hear something,
Yeah.
and to be able to use our executive function and our intelligence and our worth as we build it, because not everybody has it,
Right.
to learn to listen. Well, that's their story. If I can tell a story about my parents, and I expect them not to have an issue with it, why can't they share their story?
Right. Right.
So at
Exactly.
the end of your course, and your membership, so the membership, can you tell me more about it? Like, how long is it, and
Yeah.
the
Well,
course?
it's a monthly fee for the membership, and it's ongoing. As long as somebody wants to stay in it, they can cancel at any time. But within the membership are courses, and there are courses on emotional maturity, on boundaries,
Oh,
on just different little mini courses on how to handle all these different situations. What if you have a child that is estranged or is disrespectful? How do you handle that? And then, of course, we do have the live teachings. The first one was my son, the second one will be my daughter, and we'll have that every month. And then once a month, I just did it last night, was our support groups. We do Zoom support groups. We don't record them, they're private, they're confidential. And it was great. We had a great time last night, just a time of Q&A with me that we'll just share together whatever's pressing issues are going on with my members at that time. And then our community. So we have a little community online where they can come in, introduce themselves. I have different categories if you're struggling with a child with addiction or mental illness, and it's just parents sharing with parents. If I could leave anybody with one thing, it would be get with some people that are going through a similar struggle that you have, maybe a little further than you, because there is nothing, just like you said, Nothing more healing, nothing that gives you the support you need than somebody that understands. And not everybody's going to understand your journey, but someone that has walked that road a little ahead of you, they're going to be your greatest resource. And so if you can find that, whether it's a support group or a group of women that are meeting together, or even just one friend, that's going to be so powerful.
That's beautiful. So, where would listeners find your course?
The best place to go if you're on Instagram is to go to my Instagram page, and I have all kinds of posts on there. There's a place called membership on my page. I also do have a Facebook page called A Seed of Hope. I'm working on a website right now. I'll have it up probably in about a month, but it's not ready yet. So that's going to be the place that they'll go to eventually. But right now it's going to be Instagram and Facebook.
So a hashtag is it Kathy Cunningham 717, or is it your Instagram
That's
handle?
my Instagram. Yeah, at Kathy Cunningham 717. Yeah.
Perfect. And that's Kathy with a K.
With a K, yes, that's important. Cunningham with a C.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's good. Casey got it.
Yeah.
Well, we could probably talk for a really long time because there's so many stories of sharing of parents, but I guess the biggest part is that there is hope. Whether
Yes.
you're a faith-based person or not, love is available, and having that worth and value with yourself. Kathy, thank you so much for taking the time today to share with me, but more importantly, thank you for you being willing to do your work so that others like ourselves can benefit from you trudging through that fire and letting everybody know it's okay. I've been through this. You'll get out the other side. Some stories may not always end as happily, but no matter what, there's support that gives hope.
Yeah.
Others, I'm sure there's other parents that have stories that didn't end as great.
Right.
There's a source of comfort being in community.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. In fact, I do have a group that I facilitate called PAL, Parents of Addicted Loved Ones. And if anybody is in that journey, look them up, palgroup.org. It's a great organization. They have online groups, and that is definitely an area you need support if that's
Yeah,
your story. And I just want to end with it's never too late, and always have hope, especially if you're still both here on this earth. Always have hope.
that's beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you for being on the Love You Mom podcast, and thank you for your contributions. I'll make sure that the link to the course and your Instagram handle is here underneath. So watch for that. And thank you. And I want to say happy Florida as coming.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Candace. It's been great.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you for joining us on today's Love You Mom podcast. I hope this episode inspired you to connect and to communicate and cherish that special bond you share. And if you love this conversation, be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. And I'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments and follow us on social media at LuvYaMom, and visit LuvYaMom.ca for more ways to strengthen your mother and daughter connection. We have all kinds of fun stuff on the Love You Mom website, including the shared journal, the Just Between Us journal between mom and daughter, the 2 packages of greeting cards that can say things that maybe when you find it hard to say stuff, these cards will say it for you. There's a bookmark, a butterfly, and of course, it all fits into our really super fun Love You Mom journal kit. And what you can do is store all your stuff in there and have it in a secret place. And when you order it, it gets shipped to you just like this. And then you get to put it all together. You can do a little video of it. Anyways, thank you for joining us today. And please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe and hit that bell so you can learn more about the Love You Mom podcast and see more of our guests. And if you yourself have a great story and you would like to be a guest on the Love You Mom podcast, please feel free to just comment or mail us at info@unlockingsecrets.com, or go to LuvYaMom.ca and sign up for our newsletter and our mailing contest list. Thanks so much, guys. It was great to have you today.